Hey guys, tonight we journey into a world you think you know, but trust me, you don't. You've probably pictured the Middle Ages as knights in shining armor, maidens in tall towers, and maybe a roast boar at a feast. But the truth is far more uncomfortable, far itchier, and much more painful. Pain was everywhere in medieval life. Gnawing toothaches, twisted ankles, broken bones from fieldwork, headaches that wouldn't quit, childbirth that was closer to torture than miracle. And the cruelest part? No Tylenol, no ibuprofen, no anesthesia, not even a basic numbing injection. So how did they cope? Tonight's journey takes us into the medieval world of pain, how people endured it, soothed it, or sometimes just suffered through it with prayers, herbs, or sheer stubbornness. Before we start, take a second to get comfortable. Maybe dim the lights, turn on a fan for that soft humming background, and pull your blanket close. We're going to wander through a grim but fascinating past together. And if you enjoy these journeys, remember to like the video, subscribe, and let me know in the comments where you're watching from and what time it is for you right now. I love seeing how this little corner of history connects us across time zones. Now, let's set the stage. Imagine a life where pain isn't just an inconvenience, it's a daily companion. In a world of rough work, dangerous streets, and medical knowledge that often caused more agony than relief, people didn't expect a life without pain. Instead, they accepted it as part of existence, a reminder of sin, or even a test from God. Tonight's story: how medieval people dealt with pain without medicine. And here's the key: we're not talking about the kind of medicine you and I know. No sterile hospitals, no antibiotics. Even the idea of germs hadn't arrived yet. The average person relied on superstition, herbal remedies, religious rituals, or simply gritting their teeth. Sometimes those methods worked. Sometimes they made things worse, and often they just distracted you long enough for the body to either heal itself or fail completely. So tonight, we'll walk through a medieval day in pain. We'll wake up in a world where a headache might be explained by demons tugging at your scalp, where a toothache could lead to yanking the whole thing out with pliers heated in the fire, where women in childbirth prayed not for comfort, but for survival, where people rubbed herbs on wounds, whispered charms, or tied odd amulets around their necks, hoping to confuse the forces of suffering. And through it all, there's an odd, dark humor. Because while their lives were cruel and uncomfortable, people found ways to endure, whether by faith, folklore, or sheer resignation. So as you settle in, let your mind drift. Forget the quiet hum of modern machines, the comfort of knowing a pill is in the cabinet, or the knowledge that an ambulance could be called. None of that exists here. You've woken up in medieval Europe. Your head aches, your back burns from yesterday's labor, and there's no relief waiting. But you do have one thing: centuries of desperate, creative attempts to dull pain. And tonight, that's the story we're going to slip into together. So close your eyes if you'd like, slow your breathing, and follow me back in time. Tonight's journey begins not with comfort, but with the raw, aching, restless reality of life in pain without medicine. You open your eyes. For a moment, you're not sure if you're awake or still trapped in some dark, uncomfortable dream. The air around you is heavy, damp, and stale. There's no sweet scent of freshly laundered sheets, no gentle hum of a heater, no morning sunlight filtering through clean glass. Instead, you're lying on a mattress that isn't really a mattress at all, just a rough sack stuffed with straw, flattened from months of use, damp from last night's cold air, and alive with tiny creatures you'd rather not think about. The first sensation you feel isn't warmth. It's pain. Your back aches from the uneven straw beneath you, every joint stiff from the chill that has settled into the room overnight. Your neck is sore because your pillow isn't really a pillow. It's a bundle of old rags, knotted together and smelling faintly of mildew. If you shift too suddenly, something inside it crunches maybe a bit of dried grass, maybe the brittle remains of some insect that crawled in during the night. Your blanket is a coarse woolen thing, heavy and scratchy, and it stinks. It hasn't been washed in months, and each winter it absorbs smoke, sweat, and the faint odor of livestock. Pulling it tighter brings no comfort, just more itchiness against your skin. The room around you is silent, but not the good kind of silent. It's the suffocating silence of still air, punctuated only by the faint scratching of mice in the corner and the distant coughing of someone in the next room. If you listen closely, you hear the wheeze of their breath, ragged and uneven. You wonder if it's just a cold, or something worse, the kind of worse that has no cure. The light in your room is dim and grey, not the cheerful yellow of sunlight through curtain. That's because there is no glass, no window pane, just a small hole covered with oiled parchment, letting in a watery trickle of dawn. It doesn't brighten the room so much as reveal how smoky and dusty the air island. The smell is overwhelming, a mixture of damp earth from the dirt floor, last night's smoke clinging to the rafters, and the sour tang of unwashed bodies. Your family, or perhaps several families, shares this one-room hut. Privacy doesn't exist. Somewhere nearby, you hear a child shifting in the straw, and a soft grunt from someone who might already be awake. You sit up, slowly, and instantly feel the weight of medieval life pressing down. Your back cracks like dry wood. Your skin itches. Your mouth is dry, the taste of stale ale from last night still clinging to your tongue. You reach for water, but there is none by your bed. Water doesn't sit waiting in a bottle. It must be fetched from the well or the stream, and even then, drinking it carries its own risks. You rub your eyes. They sting, not from sleep but from smoke, because in the middle of the room the hearth has gone out, leaving only cold ash and the smell of charred wood. The fire was life last night, your only source of warmth, light, and comfort. But now it's dead, and with it dies any illusion of safety. You'll need to coax it back to life before the day can properly begin, because without fire, the cold will stay in your bone. Your body feels older than it island. You might be 20, maybe 25, but you feel closer to 60. Medieval life doesn't care about birthdays. It wears you down faster than you can imagine. Every chore, every stumble, every restless night in a lumpy straw bed leaves its mark. Pain isn't an interruption. It's a constant background hum. You stretch, but stretching doesn't bring relief. It only makes you more aware of the soreness already nestled in your muscles. The first task of waking up isn't deciding what to eat, or checking your phone, or thinking about your schedule. It's survival. You wonder if the draft you feel is from the broken roof or just another gap in the mud walls. You shiver, even beneath your blanket, and you know the day will be long. The noises outside remind you you're not alone in this world. A rooster crows somewhere in the village, though it sounds more like a strangled cry than the crisp, bright call you expect. A dog barks, probably chasing off some animal that wandered too close in the night. Hooves shuffle against the frozen ground. Life doesn't pause for anyone's comfort. You glance around the room and see the shapes of others waking up too. A mother pulls a child close, trying to keep them warm against the cold. An old man groans, shifting his brittle bones. He doesn't say anything, words are too much effort in the morning. And besides, pain speaks loudly enough on its own. You realize your body is filthy. Everyone's island. There was no evening bath, no soothing shower before bed. You went to sleep in the same clothes you worked in, and they're stiff now, stiff with sweat and dirt. When you scratch your scalp, you feel grit under your fingernails, and something tiny moves in your hair. Lice. Always lice. The hunger in your belly gnaws, but it's not the hunger of a skipped breakfast. It's the deeper, duller ache of a lifetime of poor nutrition. Your teeth throb faintly in your jaw, some of them blackened, one of them loose. You don't know what to do about it, except ignore it. Pain, after all, is not something you solve here. It's something you endure. There's no soft moment of easing into the day. No sipping coffee, no checking the weather. You wake up already sore, already itchy, already hungry. And in the back of your mind, there's always the question, what new pain will today bring? Will it be the ache of labor in the fields, the sting of a cut that festers without healing, or the sharp bite of cold that settles into your lungs? You push aside the heavy blanket and step onto the floor, dirt, hard, and cold, sometimes damp, sometimes frozen. Your toes curl instinctively, searching for warmth that isn't there. The floor doesn't welcome you. It reminds you that comfort is a luxury, and you are not rich enough to deserve it. Around you, life is stirring. Someone coughs again, louder this time. A child begins to cry, hungry already. The fire is out. The air is cold, and your body is sore. This is waking up in the medieval world. Pain isn't something that arrives when you get hurt, it's already there, stitched into the fabric of every morning. And the day hasn't even begun. Your stomach growls, but the sound doesn't bring excitement. There's no smell of fresh coffee, no sizzling bacon, no clatter of cereal bowls. Morning food in the medieval world is not a treat. It's an obligation, a small, gritty fuel source to carry your aching body into the day's labor. You shuffle toward the hearth, where the fire has been coaxed back to life with smoke, sputtering sparks, and a few precious sticks of wood. The smoke burns your eyes, makes you cough, and yet you're grateful. Without it, there would be nothing warm to eat or drink. Fire is not convenience, it's survival. Breakfast, if it can be called that, is usually pottage. Not a fresh pot, but the same one from yesterday, the day before, and perhaps even the week before. A heavy wooden bowl is ladled with thick, lukewarm stew, barley, oats, maybe turnip or cabbage if they were available. The broth is murky, the flavor sour from constant reheating, and there's always the suspicion that something crawled into it overnight. Bread appears too, but not the soft, airy kind you know. This loaf is dark, dense, and so hard it could probably chip a tooth if you're unlucky. Made of rye or barley, bulked up with whatever filler was available, sometimes ground acorns, sometimes sawdust. It's heavy in your hand and gritty in your mouth. Each bite squeaks against your teeth, with tiny fragments of stone left from the grinding mill. You chew slowly, not because you want to savor it, but because swallowing too fast could leave your throat raw. And to drink? Not water. Never water. You know too well that streams and wells are filled with things you cannot see. Parasites, filth, runoff from animals and humans alike. So instead, you drink small ale, a weak, low-alcohol beer. Even children sip from mugs, because it's safer than water. The taste is sour, yeasty, not refreshing, but at least it won't kill you. If you're lucky, perhaps a lump of cheese appears. Not creamy brie or sharp cheddar, but something hard, salty, and close to rancid. Maybe yesterday it was fine, maybe today it's turned, but you eat it anyway. Hunger leaves no room for caution. The meal fills your stomach but never satisfies. You're not full, you're functional. Breakfast is not comfort, it's survival fuel. And in the back of your mouth, one tooth throbs, irritated by the rough bread. There's no dentist to fix it. You press your tongue against it, wince, and carry on. Now comes hygiene, or rather, what passes for it. Forget toothpaste, showers, or warm running water. Your morning routine begins with the cold, biting splash of water from a bucket or basin, fetched from the well or the nearest stream. It's icy enough to make your skin sting, and the smell tells you it isn't entirely clean. You splash your face anyway, because it's the only option. The shock wakes you faster than any cup of coffee. Your teeth, you rub them with a cloth, perhaps dipped in ashes or vinegar if you can spare it. Some people chew twigs, fraying the ends to scrub their gums. But there is no toothpaste, no minty rinse, no floss. Cavities are normal, toothaches common, and rotten teeth inevitable. When the pain becomes unbearable, the solution is brutal. The tooth is yanked out with pliers or a hot iron. Until then, you live with the ache. Bathing is not part of your daily life. Entire weeks or months pass without a full wash. In towns, there are public bathhouses, but they are rare, expensive, and often frowned upon by moralists who associate them with sin. For most people, bathing is an occasional ritual, not a routine. You settle for wiping your face, rinsing your hands, and hoping the cold water masks the worst of the smell. Your clothes are unchanged. You slept in them, you'll work in them, and they haven't been washed in weeks. Washing means hauling water, heating it, scrubbing with lye or ashes until your hands blister and then drying in the open air. It's a chore most peasants can't afford to repeat often. So the wool itches, the linen scratches, and the smell clings to you like a second skin. Fleas and lice thrive in the fabric, and you scratch idly at your scalp, knowing the tiny invaders are there. Always, if you live in a village, the morning air carries other scents. Manure from the animals, smoke from neighboring hearths, and the sour reek of chamber pots emptied into the street. Personal hygiene is not private. When you relieve yourself, it's in a bucket behind the house, or in a communal ditch, or, if you're unlucky, directly into the street. Toilet paper does not exist. Instead, you use moss, rags, straw, whatever is available, and sometimes nothing at all. The ritual of cleanliness is less about feeling fresh and more about managing the unavoidable filth of life. You rub your hands in cold water, maybe wipe them on your tunic, and call it done. If you're religious, you add a prayer washing away not just dirt, but sin. In a world where illness and pain are constant, cleanliness is as much spiritual as physical. Women face even harsher routines. For them, hygiene is often tied to suspicion and control. Midwives might suggest herbal rinses or perfumes made from rosemary, sage, or vinegar. But perfumes are not luxuries here, they're masks, covering the stench of sweat and sickness. Hair is covered with a linen coif or kerchief, partly for modesty, partly to hide the lice. A woman washing her hair too often might be gossiped about. Cleanliness can be read as vanity, and vanity is a sin. As you finish your meager breakfast and rough attempt at washing, you notice the small but constant discomforts of your body. Your skin itches from wool, your scalp crawls with lice, your mouth tastes sour, gritty from bad bread and ash. Your stomach aches, not because you overate, but because the food was so coarse it scratched on the way down. And all of this is normal. Pain doesn't announce itself here with drama. It seeps into every corner of daily life. You wake up sore, you eat food that hurts your teeth, you wash with water that makes you shiver, and you step into a day already tired, already aching, and you have no choice but to carry on. Because in the medieval world, pain is not something you can escape. It's stitched into your food, your water, your bed, your clothes, even your attempts at hygiene. And as the morning ends, you haven't even begun the hardest part yet. The day's labor waits. You've eaten your coarse bread, splashed your face with icy water, and scratched at the lice living in your scalp. Now it's time to face the day in the only armor most medieval people ever owned, their clothes. Except calling them armor is generous. They protect little from the elements, less from discomfort, and nothing at all from embarrassment. The first thing you notice about medieval clothing is its weight. Your tunic, rough, woolen, and dyed in drab shades of brown or grey, hangs heavy on your shoulders. It isn't tailored to your body, because tailoring is for the wealthy. Instead, it's little more than a rectangle of fabric, stitched into shape and belted at the waist. The seams rub against your skin, leaving red marks on your arms. The wool scratches constantly, and you can't escape it. Underneath, if you're lucky, you wear a linen shift or undershirt. The linen is softer, cooler, and almost pleasant against the skin. But linen is expensive, and few people own more than one, which means your single shift has absorbed months' worth of sweat, smoke, and grime. Washing it is rare. It smells of earth, animals, and the human body. You wrinkle your nose, but there's nothing to be done. You pull it tight, sigh, and keep moving. Shoes are worse, if you even own them. Many peasants go barefoot through mud, dung, and the sharp stones of village paths. The soles of their feet are calloused, cracked, and hardened from years of exposure. If you do have shoes, they are thin slippers of leather, stiff and unyielding. They leak in the rain, burn in the summer, and provide as much support as a soggy leaf. Blisters are constant companions, infections common, and comfort non-existent. For warmth, you throw on a cloak or mantle, also wool, also itchy. It fastens at the shoulder with a crude pin. If it's winter, the cloak grows heavy with damp. If it's summer, it smothers you with heat. There is no winning. You tug it close anyway, because a cold wind blows straight through the gaps in your tunic. If you are a woman, your clothing is even heavier. Layer upon layer of wool, perhaps a gown tied with laces, always with a head covering. Married women are expected to veil their hair, sometimes even indoors, and the veil itself traps lice and grease. Shoes are the same thin leather, but skirts drag through mud, soaking up filth from the streets. Washing them is almost impossible. They dry stiff, caked with dirt, and you wear them again the next day. Fashion is not your concern. Warmth, modesty, survival, those are the priorities. But even the wealthiest noble cannot escape discomfort entirely. Silk and velvet might drape beautifully, but castles are cold, and fur collars only go so far. Beneath the luxury, they itch too, and they reek of mothballs and animal fat used to preserve them. You leave your house, and now the shelter itself demands notice. A medieval home is not a sanctuary. It's another struggle. If you are a peasant, your house is a single-room hut of wattle and daub sticks, plastered with mud, straw, and dung. The walls are uneven, cracked, and drafty. When the wind blows, it whistles through the gaps. When it rains, water seeps in, trickling down the walls and pooling on the dirt floor. In winter, frost creeps across the inside of the walls, and your breath hangs in the air as white mist. The roof is thatch, made from reeds or straw bundled together. It looks picturesque from the outside, but inside it drips. Rain seeps through, soaking the floor, and in summer, rats, mice, and insects nest in the rafters. Sometimes birds too. You hear scratching overhead as you lie awake at night, praying the roof doesn't collapse. Windows, if they exist at all, are tiny slits covered with wooden shutters or parchment. Glass is a luxury reserved for cathedrals and castles. Light barely filters through, and the inside of your home is always dim, smoky, and claustrophobic. The hearth is the center of the room, your only source of heat and cooking, but it has no chimney. Smoke fills the room, hanging low in the rafters. Your eyes sting, your lungs burn. You cough constantly, but you need the fire, so you live with the smoke. Over time, it stains your walls black and settles into your clothes and skin. The smell never leaves you. Furniture is sparse. A stool, a rough table, perhaps a bench. Beds, if they exist, are wooden frames stuffed with straw, crawling with fleas. Most families sleep together, side by side, huddled under one blanket. Privacy doesn't exist. The livestock often share the room too, chickens scratching in the corner, a goat tied near the door, a pig snuffling in the straw. Their heat is welcome in winter. Their smell unavoidable all year. The floor is dirt, packed hard, sometimes scattered with rushes or straw to soak up spills. But the rushes rot quickly, filling the air with a sweet, sickly odor. You walk across it in bare feet, feeling the cold seep up into your bones. Mud tracks in from outside. Waste sometimes seeps in too. Cleanliness is not possible here. Even nobles live uncomfortably. Their castles are not cozy retreats. They are stone fortresses, cold and damp, with drafts that cut through every hall. Fires roar in the great hall, but heat never reaches the chambers above. Tapestries hang on the walls, not for decoration, but to block the wind. In winter, frost clings to the inside of stone walls. In summer, the air grows stale, humid, and foul. Rats scurry through storeroom. Fleas infest the rushes on noble floors as readily as in peasant huts. Servants sleep on straw pallets in the hallways, and chamber pots spill in corners. The smell is always there, no matter how much incense or sweet herbs are burned. Your shelter is not a place of rest. It's a place to survive the night. The clothing on your back scratches, pinches, and drags. The house above your head leaks, smokes, and swarms with vermin. You pause, scratch again at your scalp, and pull your wool cloak tighter. The day stretches ahead. Work waits, hunger waits, pain waits, and neither your clothes nor your shelter will shield you from any of it. Because in the medieval world, even the things meant to protect you, the fabric you wear, the roof above you, are just more reminders that life is raw, uncomfortable, and unrelenting. The morning has barely begun, and already your body aches. Your stomach is full only of rough bread and weak ale. Your clothes itch, and your shelter has done little more than keep the rain from drowning you in your sleep. But now comes the true ordeal: work. And in the medieval world, work is not a career, not a hobby, not even a means to an end. It is survival itself. If you cannot work, you cannot eat. If you cannot work, your family suffers. Rest is a fantasy reserved for saints and the dead. Step outside, and the first thing you notice is the mud. It clings to your shoes, or to your bare feet if you have none. It sucks at your steps, heavy and unyielding. In summer, the earth bakes into cracks and dust, choking your lungs as you bend to the fields. In winter, it hardens into ice that numbs your toes until they feel like brittle sticks ready to snap. There is no season of ease. Every day demands toil. If you are a peasant, your work is farming, whether you like it or not. From dawn to dusk, you bend your back to the soil. You pull weeds by hand, plant seeds with fingers already blistered, and swing crude tools that cut more flesh than grain. The plough is heavy, dragged by oxen if you are fortunate, by your own body if you are not. Your hands blister, crack, and bleed. You wipe the blood away with dirt, because there's no other option. The fields are unforgiving. Rain turns them to swamps, sun scorches the crops, frost kills seedlings overnight. And every mistake, every failed harvest is paid not in disappointment, but in hunger. A poor season means thin bodies, sickness, and death. You work harder than your muscles allow, not for wealth, not even for comfort, but simply to survive another winter. Your overseer watches. Perhaps it is the Lord's steward, perhaps a bailiff, perhaps just another villager given authority over you. They carry a staff or a whip, and their voice carries the weight of the Lord himself. If you falter, if you slow, punishment follows. A fine, a beating, maybe worse. Mercy is not part of their vocabulary. Your body is expected to endure until it breaks. If you are a woman, your labor doubles. You join in the fields, but you also tend the home. You grind grain by hand, turning heavy stones hour after hour until your arms feel like lead. You fetch water from the well, carrying buckets that cut into your shoulders. You spin wool, weave cloth, cook pottage, nurse children, and care for the elderly. Every chore aches. Every chore demands more than you have. And yet you continue because to stop is unthinkable. Children are not spared. By the time they can walk, they carry wood, herd animals, and fetch water. Play is a luxury they rarely taste. By 7 or 8, they are working as small adults, their bodies already bent and scarred from tasks too heavy for them. Many do not survive to adulthood. Those who do carry their childhood pain with them in twisted bones and worn joints. Not everyone farms, of course. Some labor in towns where trades and crafts rule. But work there is no easier. Blacksmiths endure the endless roar of the forge, sweat pouring from their bodies as they hammer glowing metal until their arms ache like fire. The air is thick with smoke and sparks, their lungs filling with soot. Burns scar their skin, blisters cover their hands, and ringing hammers deafen their ears. Tanners stand knee-deep in vats of urine and dung, used to soften hides. The stench is unbearable, the filth constant, their skin raw and cracked from the caustic liquids. The smell follows them everywhere, marking them as outcasts in their own communities. Masons climb scaffolding with heavy stones strapped to their backs, every misstep a potential fall to death. Their muscles tear under the strain. Their fingers bleed from sharp edges. Their lungs fill with dust. Many die young, crushed by the very stones they helped raise. And then there are those condemned to the dirtiest work of all, cleaning the streets, emptying privies, dredging ditches clogged with human waste. The air they breathe is poison, the filth clings to their skin, and disease follows them like a shadow. Yet someone must do it, and in the medieval world, someone always does. Work consumes the day. There are no breaks except those stolen in secret. Lunch is little more than another hunk of bread, another sip of ale, eaten squatting in the field or on a workshop floor. You chew quickly, your jaw aching from the hardness, and you go back to labor before your overseer notices your stillness. Tools offer no comfort. They are crude, heavy, and often broken. A wooden hoe splinters in your hand, sending shards into your skin. A dull sickle drags across stalks, tearing more than it cuts. Repairs are constant, but materials are scarce. You patch tools with rope, wood, or sheer stubbornness, and keep working. Your body grows tired before the day is half over. Your back bends, your shoulders throb, your legs tremble. But you push forward. Pain is expected. Complaints mean nothing. You work and you endure, because that is what life demands. Sometimes you dream of easier work, maybe of being a scribe, sitting at a desk with parchment and ink. But scribes, too, suffer. Their eyes strain in the dim light. Their backs curve from endless hours hunched over manuscripts. Cramps seize their hands and ink stains their skin. Pain is universal. It wears different costumes, but it always finds you. And if you are truly unlucky, your work is not even your own. If you are enslaved or bound in serfdom, every stroke of the hoe, every swing of the hammer, every stitch of the needle is done for someone else's profit. You labor under threat of punishment, your freedom non-existent, your life measured only by the value of your body's output. By afternoon, your body feels hollowed out, every muscle stretched thin, every bone groaning. The sun burns your skin, or the cold gnaws your fingers, sweat stings your eyes, or frost bites at your toes. And through it all, the overseer shouts, the tools fail, and the work never ends. Evening will come eventually, the sun will dip, and the day's labor will pause, but not yet. For now, you bend again, lift again, sweat again, because in the medieval world, labor is not simply what you do, it is what you are. Survival work is your existence, and until death frees you, there will be no end to the aching, grinding, punishing weight of it. The sun is high, your body aches, and you've already lost count of how many times your hands have bled today. But in the medieval world, pain isn't just physical, it's spiritual. Every sore muscle, every headache, every infection carries a meaning beyond the flesh, and that meaning is shaped by belief. Religion is not a part of your life. Here it is your life. The church looms over everything, from the smallest village chapel to the grandest cathedral. Its bells tell you when to rise, when to pray, when to rest, and when to confess. Every moment of your existence, from birth to death, is framed by ritual, expectation, and fear of the divine. Pain is explained not by science, but by God's will. If you suffer, it may be punishment for sin. Perhaps your toothache is a reminder of dishonesty. Perhaps your aching joints are penance for pride. Illness and injury are rarely seen as random, they are interpreted as messages. And those messages are terrifying, because they imply your eternal soul is at stake. The church teaches that suffering draws you closer to Christ. His crucifixion, bloody and brutal, is held up as the ultimate example of redemptive pain. When your back throbs after a day in the fields, when childbirth leaves you broken and exhausted, when plague rots the flesh of your neighbors, you are told to see it not just as agony, but as a way to share in holy suffering. Pain, in this logic, is proof that God has not forgotten you, and so you endure. You grit your teeth and pray, not for comfort, but for strength. You cross yourself before the icons, whispering Hail Marys or Our Fathers, hoping each word counts toward mercy. A priest may assure you that your pain earns you time off purgatory. That thought comforts you in the smallest, strangest way. But belief is not always comforting. Superstition fills the spaces where faith cannot soothe. That throbbing headache? Perhaps it isn't just sin, it might be demons, tiny spirits tugging at your scalp. A charm is tied around your head. Maybe a scrap of parchment with a saint's name written on it, maybe a bone or a piece of string. Not because it heals, but because it wards off the unseen forces you fear. If you cut yourself in the field and the wound festers, people murmur about curses. Perhaps someone wished you ill. Perhaps a witch muttered your name over her herbs. Suspicion spreads quickly. A neighbor with a sharp tongue, a midwife with too much knowledge of plants, an old woman who mutters to herself, they all become scapegoats for the pain that cannot be explained. Superstition runs deep. A rabbit's foot tied around your neck, a charm carved into wood, a blessing whispered over your bread, all are believed to keep suffering away. Crossroads are dangerous places, haunted by spirits. Sleep too close to a graveyard, and you risk the touch of restless dead. Children wear amulets of coral or teeth to ward off illness. Farmers hang herbs over doorways to keep out the evil eye. The lines between religion and superstition blur constantly. Holy water is sprinkled on wounds. Relics, bones of saints, scraps of cloth, drops of oil are pressed against sores, prayed over with desperate hope. Pilgrimages are made to shrines where miracles are rumored. You walk for days, barefoot, blistered, just to kneel before a statue and ask it to heal you. Sometimes you leave believing you are healed. Sometimes the pain remains, and you tell yourself the healing will come in heaven instead. Fear controls behavior as much as faith. The church warns that working on holy days may bring divine punishment. So even when hunger gnaws, you hesitate to swing the hoe. Eating forbidden foods during Lent could mean illness sent from God. Even thinking lustful thoughts is said to risk sickness of body as well as soul. Every action is policed by the invisible gaze of heaven, and yet belief is also community. On Sundays, you shuffle into the small, smoky church, standing shoulder to shoulder with your neighbors. The air is thick with incense. The Latin chants echo off the stone, and candles flicker in the dim light. You don't understand every word the priest speaks in a language not your own, but the ritual wraps around you. For a brief hour, your pain feels shared, your hunger part of something larger. Festivals punctuate the grind of work. The feast of a saint might bring music, dancing, and ale, but even then, fear lurks. A bad harvest is blamed on weak devotion. A sudden storm is seen as wrath. Lightning strikes, and people whisper that someone has sinned. Pain always circles back to belief. If you are wealthy, your faith costs you money. You purchase indulgences, masses for your soul, relics for your chapel. You confess in private chambers, advised by priests who remind you that even luxury does not spare you from sin. If you are poor, your faith costs you labor days spent fasting, coins dropped into the alms box, prayers recited even when your throat is dry and sore. And everywhere, superstition fills the gaps. You tie herbs to your children's clothes to ward off sickness. You mutter charms before stepping into the fields. You glance nervously at the moon, because its phases are thought to govern health and madness. You knock wood, spit over your shoulder, avoid black cats, all in hopes of keeping pain at bay. But no charm, no relic, no whispered prayer truly spares you. The ache in your body returns as soon as you leave the church. The fever in your child doesn't fade, no matter how many amulets you tie around their neck. Pain lingers, pain persists, and yet, without belief, without the framework of faith and superstition, you would have nothing but despair. So you cling to it. You tell yourself your suffering is holy. You convince yourself the amulet helps. You walk barefoot to shrines, kneel in cold chapels, press relics to your sores, and pray until your knees bruise. Because in a world without medicine, belief is your only balm. The church bells toll, echoing across the village, and with them comes a tiny moment of relief. The fields pause. The forge goes quiet. The steward's voice grows less sharp. It is time for the main meal of the day. But don't imagine a feast. The medieval dinner is not a banquet with shining platters and endless meat. For most, it's another bowl of pottage, slightly thicker than the morning's version, but still the same bubbling cauldron of oats, peas, onions, and whatever scraps the household has managed to throw in. It's been cooking for hours, absorbing smoke and the tang of yesterday's stew. If you're lucky, today's pot contains a shred of bacon or a bone with some fat still clinging to it. The flavor spreads through the broth, giving you the illusion of richness, but there is rarely enough meat to chew. You slurp, imagining what it would be like to eat your fill of pork or beef. Bread appears again, dense and dark. It breaks into chunks rather than slices. You dunk it into the pottage to soften it. Otherwise, it scrapes the roof of your mouth. The bread is filling, yes, but it is also gritty. You can feel the tiny shards of stone from the millstones grinding against your teeth. Every bite risks a chip. For drink, there is ale, warm, flat, cloudy. It fills your stomach, dulls your thirst, and leaves you just a little light-headed if you drink too much. Wine is rare, reserved for nobles and clergy. Water remains dangerous, unless boiled, and even then, most prefer to trust fermented drink over pure. Vegetables make up most of your diet. Cabbage, leeks, turnips, peas. They're eaten, boiled, stewed, mashed into pottage until they lose both shape and flavor. Fresh vegetables in season are a blessing. Out of season, they're pickled, salted, or simply absent. Fruit is rarer still. An apple or pear, if you find one, feels like treasure. Spoilage is constant. Without refrigeration, meat sours quickly, milk curdles, butter turns rancid. Salt is precious, used to preserve when possible but expensive. More often, you eat food that tastes off and hope your stomach tolerates it. Sometimes it does, sometimes it doesn't. Parasites are frequent guests at your table. Nobles eat differently. Their tables groan with roasted meats, venison, boar, swan. Spices from the east, expensive and exotic, cover the dishes. Cinnamon, cloves, pepper. But don't be too envious. Those rich sauces are not just for flavor. They are masks, hiding the taste of meat already beginning to rot. Even in castles, food safety is a gamble. After eating, your belly feels heavy but not satisfied. Hunger never truly goes away here. You're full enough to keep working, but the gnawing emptiness always returns. Pain is not banished. It only sleeps for a while. Still, mealtime carries a joy beyond the food itself. It is a chance to sit, to share, to talk. Stories are told, gossip whispered. You laugh at a neighbor's joke, even if it isn't funny, because laughter feels like rebellion against the grind of work. And when the day ends, entertainment beckons. Crude, rough, often dangerous, but entertainment all the same. Perhaps you go to the tavern. It's smoky, dark, crowded and loud. The air smells of ale, sweat and unwashed wool. The floor is straw-covered dirt, sticky with spilled drink. Benches wobble, mugs clatter, voices shout. Here you drink, sing, gamble. A fiddler plays, a bard tells tales, and for a brief while you forget your aches. You sway with the crowd, ale warming your belly, song filling your ears, until a fight breaks out, a mug shatters, and someone bleeds on the floor. The tavern is as dangerous as it is joyful. Or perhaps you attend a festival. The church calendar brims with holy days, each one an excuse to pause the fields and celebrate. On these days, the village erupts into color and noise. Musicians play bagpipes and drums. Dancers stamp their feet in the mud. Acrobats tumble. Jugglers toss flaming torches. Stalls sell roasted nuts, pies, fried fritters dripping with honey. Children run wild, chasing each other through the crowd. But even festivals are edged with discomfort. The food is greasy, the ale flows too freely, and by nightfall many collapse from drink or sickness. Pickpockets thrive, fights erupt, and the risk of fire from a stray torch is always real. Yet the memory of dancing, singing, and stuffing your mouth with something sweet lingers like rare treasure. The wealthy find entertainment differently. They gather in great halls for feasts. Minstrels sing of knights and kings. Poets recite verses. Jesters perform tricks. There are hunting parties, falconry, tournaments with knights smashing into each other for glory. It is spectacle, grand and glittering, but still built on discomfort. The halls are cold, the food half-spoiled, the games brutal. The theatre, too, exists. Morality plays in the village square, mystery plays at festivals, puppet shows for children. Actors wear masks, priests supervise the themes, and the stories warn of sin and salvation. You laugh at the comic devils, shiver at the sermons, and walk away reminded that even entertainment is a sermon in disguise. At home, entertainment is simpler. a game of dice carved from bone, a song sung by the hearth, riddles traded in the dark, stories of saints and spirits, witches and ghosts. You laugh, you shiver, you feel human again for a little while, and through it all, pain lingers. Your belly twists from coarse bread, your teeth ache from gritty flour, your head spins from too much ale. You scratch at lice, rub your sore back, and know tomorrow will bring the same. But for now, surrounded by laughter, song, and company, you endure. Because even in a world of suffering, people still seek joy. Meals and entertainment may be crude, dangerous, and uncomfortable, but they offer something pain cannot crush. A fleeting reminder that life is more than labor, that even in darkness, there is light, however dim. Your belly is heavy with pottage, your head is buzzing from ale, and for a moment you almost feel normal. But in the medieval world, normal is always temporary. Illness lurks everywhere, silent and inevitable, and when it strikes, you discover just how powerless you are without real medicine. The first sign is often small, a cough that lingers, a toothache that spreads into the jaw, a blister that refuses to heal. At first, you ignore it, because everyone is always in some kind of pain, but then it worsens. The cough deepens into hacking fits. The tooth rots until your face swells. The blister festers, oozing pus, and suddenly you're faced with the terror of medieval illness. Once it begins, it rarely ends well. Diseases roam freely. Fevers, dysentery, pneumonia, leprosy, ergot poisoning from moldy bread, outbreaks of plague. Each is deadly, each unstoppable. The simplest cut can turn septic. The smallest cough can spread through an entire household. You have no soap, no antibiotics, no vaccines, just herbs, prayers, and luck. If you seek help, you turn first to folk remedies. Your neighbor swears by garlic tied around the neck. A midwife suggests sage boiled in wine. A traveling healer offers powders, salves, charms. Some remedies ease symptoms, others do nothing, and some make things worse. You swallow bitter brews of wormwood, or drink concoctions that taste of earth and bile, hoping they drive the sickness out. Sometimes they do. Sometimes they kill you faster. If the illness is severe, you might visit a physician if you can afford one, dressed in long robes, perhaps carrying books filled with strange diagrams. The physician speaks of humours, blood, phlegm, black bile, yellow bile. To him, your fever means your humours are unbalanced. The cure? Bloodletting. He pricks your vein, drains your lifeblood into a bowl, and tells you this will restore harmony. You grow weaker, paler. Sometimes the fever breaks. Sometimes you bleed to death. Cupping, leeches, purging with laxatives, all are prescribed. You endure them not because they work, but because there is nothing else. And each procedure hurts. The cuts sting, the leeches bite, the purges twist your gut until you collapse on the floor. Relief is rare, but you cling to hope because the alternative is despair. Surgery exists, but it is brutal. There is no anesthesia beyond strong ale or a knockout blow to the head. A broken bone may be set with rough hands, leaving it crooked forever. An abscess might be lanced with a heated knife, the smell of burning flesh filling the room as you scream into a rag. Limbs are sometimes amputated fast, savage, with saws that chew through bone. The pain is indescribable, the risk of infection almost certain. Few survive the procedure. Religion shadows every illness. Priests remind you that sickness may be divine punishment. Confession is urged, prayers whispered over your body. Holy water is sprinkled, relics pressed to your skin. Pilgrimages are suggested. Walk to a shrine, crawl to a holy well, kiss the bones of a saint. Sometimes, In desperation, you stumble barefoot across miles of road, aching with fever, hoping the miracle will come. But most miracles never arrive. Instead, you wait. You lie on your straw bed, sweat soaking the sackcloth, coughing into the dark. Family hovers, helpless. Children cry at the sight of you. The hearth crackles, but its warmth does nothing to ease the fever burning inside you. You breathe shallow, clutching a wooden cross, muttering prayers. Death feels close, pressing at the edges of the room, and it is close. Death is always close here. Plague sweeps through villages, turning skin black, swelling glands, leaving corpses in heaps. Dysentery empties the bowels until bodies shrivel. Childbirth claims mother and child with ruthless regularity. Half of all children die before adulthood. To be alive is to live beside death, to expect its hand at any time. The fear of death shapes everything. You wonder constantly, have I confessed enough? Have I sinned too much? If I die tonight, will I burn in hell or wait in purgatory's flames for centuries? Pain is not just physical, it is eternal, a sign of what may await your soul. The church teaches that your suffering now may shorten your suffering later. You cling to that, even as your body crumbles. Superstition clings to illness too. Amulets against the evil eye are tied to sick children. Herbs are hung above beds to drive out demons. People mutter about witches causing fevers, about curses riding on the wind. A neighbor's glance, a whispered word, a crooked smile suddenly. Suspicion becomes cure, and the sick grow fearful not only of death, but of their own community. Yet, through all this, there is resilience. Families nurse each other as best they can. Women mix herbs in smoky kitchens, men fetch water, children sit by the bedside. You endure together. Pain shared becomes pain lessened, if only slightly. Still, death often wins. The body weakens, the breath slows, and silence fills the room. The family wails. The priest recites prayers. The body is wrapped in linen and carried to the churchyard. Graves fill quickly. Earth swallows the dead as swiftly as the living can dig. And life continues, always continues. Because in the medieval world, pain and death are not exceptions. They are the rule. And illness, crude medicine, and constant fear remind you every day just how fragile, temporary, and painful existence truly island. The church bells fade into the afternoon, and your body aches from labor. But in the medieval world, the struggle isn't just in the fields or the workshops, it's inside the home. Family is your anchor, your duty, your pride, and often your greatest burden. If you are a woman, your day is twice as long as any man. You rise before the sun, light the hearth, fetch water, grind grain, cook pottage, feed livestock, sweep dirt floors, and then join your husband or neighbors in the fields. When the day's labor ends, your work continues. You spin wool, mend clothing, nurse infants, prepare tomorrow's meal. Your hands are never still. Childbirth is your greatest trial. There are no doctors, no sterile instruments, no anesthesia. Just the midwife, a circle of women and faith. You scream into rags, bite wood, clutch holy relics. Herbs may be burned, prayers whispered, charms tied to your wrist. But survival is never certain. Many women die in childbirth, their bodies broken by labor. Many infants are stillborn or die within days. Each pregnancy is both hope and terror, and yet children are essential. They are workers, heirs, helpers in the endless cycle of survival. From the moment they can walk, they fetch water, gather firewood, scare birds from crops. By 7 or 8, they herd animals, weed fields, carry burdens. Their childhood is short, their play rare. They grow up fast because they must. But many never grow up at all. Disease claims infants in shocking numbers. Fevers, coughs, diarrhea, simple illnesses that modern medicine cures easily are death sentences here. Mothers bury child after child, sometimes without even naming them. Baptism is rushed within hours of birth because death is expected. Parents grieve, but grief is softened by repetition. Life and death mingle constantly. For those children who survive, discipline is harsh. Parents strike with hands, sticks, belts. The belief is simple. A child must be broken of sin. Disobedience is beaten out. Respect enforced. Tenderness exists, but it hides beneath the weight of necessity. Love is shown not through gifts or words, but through survival feeding, clothing, protecting. Marriage itself is rarely about romance. For peasants, it is a partnership, often arranged by families. Land, livestock, tools these determine matches more than affection. A strong back and good reputation are worth more than charm. For nobles, marriage is politics. Daughters are bargaining chips, traded for land, alliances, peace. A bride may meet her husband for the first time on their wedding day. Love, when it appears, is a luxury. Couples may grow fond over time, bonded by shared hardship. But passion is suspect, even dangerous. Courtly love exists only in songs and poems, where knights pine for unattainable ladies. Real life is more practical, more constrained. Inside the home, privacy is rare. Families live together in a single room. Parents, children, grandparents, sometimes livestock, all under one roof. Intimacy happens in whispers, in shadows, while others pretend to sleep. Walls are thin, beds shared. Secrets are impossible. Gossip thrives. Women's lives are tightly controlled. The church preaches obedience to God, to husband, to father. A woman is defined by her roles: daughter, wife, mother, widow. Her rights are few, her responsibilities endless. She is expected to be modest, silent, pious. To speak too loudly, to act too boldly, invites suspicion, even accusations of witchcraft. Yet women carry immense strength. They keep households alive, birth children, preserve traditions. They know the herbs that soothe fever, the charms that ease fear, the stories that bind families together. They endure more pain than most men ever see, and they endure it quietly. For widows, life is precarious. Without a husband's protection, they may lose land, income, safety. Some remarry quickly, others rely on children or extended family. A few carve independence as midwives, alewives, or healers. But independence is fragile. A whisper of impropriety, a hint of suspicion, can ruin everything. For children, family life is both shelter and burden. They work alongside parents, eat from the same pot, sleep in the same straw. They learn quickly how to mend, how to cook, how to sew. Education is rare, reserved for boys of wealthy families or those destined for the church. Most children learn only survival skills: reading, writing, numbers, luxuries beyond their reach. Games exist, of course. Children play with sticks, stones, rag dolls, hoops. They chase each other through muddy streets, laugh in the fields, sing songs, but play is always brief, cut short by chores, hunger, or exhaustion. Childhood joy flickers like a candle, fragile and easily extinguished. Noble children fare differently, but not always better. Their childhoods are shaped by duty. Sons are trained for knighthood or clerical life. Daughters are groomed for marriage, taught to sew, to sing, to smile with modesty. Their futures are decided before they can speak. They may wear finer clothes, eat richer food, live in stone halls, but they are prisoners of expectation, no freer than peasant children. Family life is both comfort and confinement. You rely on your kin utterly. Without them, you cannot survive. But they also tie you down, dictate your choices, and watch your every move. There is no independence, no escape, only the constant cycle of labor, duty, and obedience. And through it all, pain remains. Women labor through childbirth with screams swallowed into straw. Children work until their hands blister. Fathers collapse from exhaustion in the fields. Grandparents cough in the corner until silence claims them. The family is a fortress against the outside world, but it is also a crucible of suffering. Still, within this crucible, love flickers. A mother cradles her child, even knowing it may not live. A father repairs a broken toy by candlelight. Brothers share stolen apples. Sisters whisper songs in the dark. Tenderness hides in small gestures, fleeting and fragile, but real. Because in the medieval world, survival is not enough. To endure pain, you need more. And family, imperfect, harsh, suffocating, offers the only warmth in a cold and merciless existence. The sun sits high overhead, beating down on aching backs and blistered hands. Your body is already weary, but the day is far from over. The medieval afternoon doesn't just bring more labor, it brings conflict. Life is not only a struggle against hunger and pain, but also against other people, other powers, and the weight of a society built on control. You return to the fields, your body groaning as you bend once more. The steward watches with sharp eyes, his staff tapping against the ground. His voice cuts like a whip when someone slows. You know better than to protest. To speak back is to invite a fine, a beating, or worse. Authority is not questioned here. It is endured. Disputes simmer everywhere. A neighbor accuses you of letting your goats graze on his strip of land. Another claims your children stole apples from his tree. Voices rise, hands clench, but arguments rarely end with compromise. They end with fists, with knives, or with the intervention of the Lord's men. Justice is not blind. It belongs to whoever has power. Petty theft is common. Hunger drives it. A loaf of bread, a chicken, a length of cloth, all are worth risking punishment for. But when thieves are caught, the punishments are brutal. Stocks in the village square, where shame burns hotter than hunger. Whippings that leave scars for life. In towns, the gallows wait, ropes swaying in the wind. A constant reminder of how fragile survival island. Violence is everywhere. Tavern brawls spill into streets. Farmers clash with neighbors over boundaries. Soldiers press into villages, demanding supplies, threatening with steel. Even family disputes erupt into blows. Life is hard, tempers short, weapons close at hand. A knife at the belt, a staff by the door, a rock in the hand. These are tools as much for defense as for work. And when violence escalates beyond control, the law steps in. But the law here is not fairness, it is spectacle. Justice is meant to terrify, not rehabilitate. Thieves lose hands, murderers swing from rope, accused witches burn. Punishments are public, staged for all to see. The crowd gathers, children on shoulders, vendors selling ale, as the condemned is dragged forth. Pain is not hidden, it is theatre. For lesser crimes, humiliation suffices. You may be forced to wear a shame mask, a grotesque iron contraption that brands you as liar or gossip. You may be dragged through the streets, jeered at by neighbors. You may be forced to crawl to the church door, confessing sins aloud as everyone watches. The sting of humiliation cuts as deep as any lash. Women often bear the brunt of suspicion. A midwife whose herbs fail to cure an illness might be whispered about as a witch. A widow who lives alone becomes suspect. A woman who talks too much, laughs too loudly, or simply doesn't fit in may find herself accused. The fear of magic, curses, and the devil turns neighbors into enemies and suspicion into death sentences. Children are not spared from conflict either. They fight in the streets with sticks and stones, sometimes for play, sometimes for food. They suffer under harsh discipline, beaten for disobedience, whipped for laziness. Their cries echo across the village, but no one interferes. Pain is seen as correction, not cruelty. Nobles clash too, though their disputes take grander form. Castles bristle against one another. Lords argue over borders. Knights ride into fields with banners and steel. Villagers suffer the most. Crops trampled, homes burned, livestock stolen. The battles of nobles trickle down as ruin for the poor. In towns, guilds and merchants fight for dominance. Riots break out over prices, taxes, or insults. The marketplace erupts with shouts, fists, sometimes blades. Soldiers march in to restore order, often with more blood than before. The poor scatter, the wealthy retreat behind locked doors, and the streets echo with the chaos of human desperation. Even religion stirs conflict. Priests preach obedience, but rival sects whisper new ideas. Heresy is feared, hunted, crushed. Those who question too loudly may find themselves bound, interrogated, tortured for confession. Faith is comfort, yes, but it is also weapon, wielded to silence and control. And then there are punishments worse than death. Exile, branding, mutilation. To be cast out of your community is to be sentenced to slow death. Alone, without family, without food, without shelter, you cannot survive. Branding marks you forever, a scar that declares your crime to every eye. Mutilation cripples you, leaving you unable to work, yet still expected to live. The fear of punishment, of humiliation, of violence hangs heavy in every afternoon. It keeps you obedient, it keeps you silent, but it also feeds resentment. You mutter under your breath about unfair taxes, about cruel stewards, about greedy lords. You dream of rebellion, of freedom. But rebellion here is suicide. The lash, the rope, the fire await any who dare too much. So you endure. You endure the overseer's shouts, the neighbor's accusations, the endless disputes. You endure the humiliation of unfair justice, the sting of shame, the bite of the whip. You endure because endurance is all you have. The afternoon stretches on. Your body aches from work, your mind from fear. Around you, arguments spark, punishments loom, injustice thrives, and always pain follows. Not just the pain of labor, but the pain inflicted by other people, by authority, by the society itself. Because in the medieval world, suffering is not only natural, it is organized, enforced, and displayed for all to see. The day has finally crawled toward its end. The sun sinks low, spilling red light across the fields, and you feel a faint flicker of relief. But in the medieval world, nightfall is not rest. It is danger. As darkness spreads, every sound sharpens. The creak of a cartwheel, the distant bark of a dog, the rustle of leaves all carry a weight of menace. There are no street lamps, no glow of electricity, no safe hum of distant cars. The night is absolute. Once the sun dips below the horizon, the world belongs to shadows. You hurry inside before the light is gone. The hearth is lit, the only glow in the one-room house. Firelight flickers across faces, casting deep shadows that make eyes look hollow and cheeks look gaunt. The smoke curls up toward the rafters, stinging your lungs, but without it, you'd be blind. Candles exist, but they're expensive. Most families cannot afford more than one or two. A tallow candle burns with a greasy stench dripping unevenly. Its dim glow pushes back only a few feet of darkness. Beyond that, the night presses close. Outside, the village grows quiet, then restless. Thieves wait for darkness to hide their steps. Wolves and wild dogs prowl the edges of the fields, their eyes catching stray glimmers of moonlight. Bandits travel by night, slipping past sleeping guards to raid travelers or lonely farms. No lock is strong, no door thick enough to guarantee safety. You pray that tonight they pass you by. Inside, the house is crowded. Family huddles close around the fire. The livestock snuffle in the corners. The smell of sweat, smoke, manure, and damp straw thickens in the confined space. You shift on your straw bed, already itching with fleas. The children whimper, frightened by the dark. Their mothers murmur prayers, tracing crosses on their foreheads. But it isn't only physical threats that make the night terrifying. The darkness is full of spirits, or so you believe. Ghosts of the unburied dead wander roads. Witches fly unseen, whispering curses into windows. Demons prowl for souls. Every flicker of shadow is suspect. Every gust of wind a possible sign of the devil's breath. You whisper charms, sprinkle holy water, clutch relics. Faith and superstition are your shield, but they do little to ease the knot of fear in your gut. And then there is fire. Always fire. Every home is tinder dry, built of timber, straw, and daub. The hearth must burn to give light and warmth, but one stray spark could consume everything. Villages often burn to the ground overnight. You lie awake, listening for the crackle of flames, sniffing for smoke, knowing that if it comes, there will be no time to save anything. Fire spreads faster than scream. When sleep does come, it is not comfortable. You lie on straw, crawling with vermin, wrapped in blankets that itch and stink. Bodies press against you on all sides. Snores rattle in the air. Children toss and whimper. Someone coughs a deep, rattling cough that doesn't stop. You wonder if it's just a cold, or the start of something worse. Illness travels fastest at night, when the sick lie close to the healthy, sharing every breath. And sleep itself is not safe. You dream of death, of demons, of starvation. Nightmares are frequent, fueled by hunger, by fear, by whispered tales. You wake in the dark, heart racing, eyes wide, listening for movement. Was that a rat? A thief? Or something you cannot name? For nobles in their castles, the night is no kinder. Drafts whistle through stone corridors, tapestries flutter like ghosts. Servants shuffle in the dark with candles, their footsteps echoing. Guards pace the walls, but raids and assassins still slip through. Even kings wake with fear. The wealthiest die in their beds as easily as peasants do, smothered by smoke, struck by sickness, or stabbed in silence. And above all else, night brings the shadow of death. It lingers in every cough, every shiver, every uneasy breath. You lie awake beside your family, and you wonder who will still be alive in the morning. Will the fever claim your child? Will wolves take your goat? Will thieves break the door? Will the fire catch? Death is not an if, it is a when. The medieval world is saturated with it. Cemeteries surround churches. Graves crowd the fields. Skulls are carved into stonework. Bones kept as relics. You see death every day, and still, each night, you fear it anew. So you whisper a prayer. You cross yourself. You try to sleep, though fear gnaws at the edges of your rest. The fire burns low. The candle gutters. The room falls into blackness. Outside, wolves howl. Inside, Your heart beats hard against the silence, because in the medieval world, nightfall is never peaceful. It is a reminder of how fragile you are, how thin the line is between life and death. And as you drift into uneasy sleep, you know that tomorrow you may not wake. The night has grown heavy, the fire has burned low, casting only faint glimmers of light on the dirt floor. Outside, the wind whistles through cracks in the walls, carrying with it the far-off bark of a dog or the rustle of some unseen animal in the hedgerows. Inside, the room is crowded with the sounds of sleep snores, coughs, the shifting of bodies against scratchy blankets and straw mattresses alive with fleas. You lie in the dark, listening, waiting, breathing. The long day is done. The aches of morning, the hunger of midday, the bruises of labor, the sting of fear, they all remain, but they have softened into the rhythm of exhaustion. Pain in the medieval world is never gone, but at night it hums low, like an old song, familiar and constant. And as you lie there, you realize something important. This was life for almost everyone. For peasants in smoky huts, for townsfolk in cramped workshops, for nobles in drafty castles. No one was spared. The weight of pain, hunger, disease, fear, and death pressed on every shoulder, rich or poor. The details shifted meat in the pot for some, famine for others, but the constant presence of suffering tied everyone together. The harshness of medieval life wasn't just in the work or the poverty, it was in the absence of escape. No clean water, no medicine, no privacy, no light to push back the dark. Even joy meals, festivals, laughter was fragile, temporary, shadowed always by danger. To be alive was to hurt. To survive was to accept pain as your closest companion. And yet, people endured. They found ways to laugh, to sing, to celebrate. They carved little pleasures from a world that seemed determined to deny them comfort. They made charms to ward off sickness. They told stories by the hearth. They shared mugs of ale and danced in muddy streets. They prayed, they hoped, they dreamed. They fought to stay alive, even when life seemed unbearable. It's worth pausing here, as you rest in your modern bed, to consider what you've just walked through. Think of the mattress beneath you, soft and clean, the sheets fresh, the pillow light, the air free of smoke. Think of your tap water, clear and safe, your meals plentiful and varied, your medicine cabinet ready with relief for headaches, fevers, infections. Think of the lock on your door, the glow of your lamp, the hum of machines that chase away silence and darkness. Every small comfort we take for granted today would feel miraculous to the people of the medieval world. A warm shower, a cup of coffee, a blanket that doesn't itch, a room of your own. To them, you live like royalty. To you, it is simply normal. And so, as you settle deeper into your pillow, let gratitude ease your thoughts. You do not have to wake to the sound of overseers shouting. You do not have to eat sour bread that chips your teeth. You do not have to wash in icy water from a bucket. You do not have to fear that every cough might be your last. Instead, you can close your eyes in safety. You can drift into dreams without fearing fire, wolves, or thieves. You can breathe deeply, knowing the air will not choke you with smoke. You can rest, truly rest, in a way few people in history ever could. So let the weight of the medieval world slip from your shoulders. Let the aches, the hunger, the fear that you carried with you through this story dissolve. You have walked among them, felt their struggles, shared their pain, but now you return to your own time, where comfort surrounds you. Slow your breathing. Inhale gently, exhale slowly. Feel the rhythm of rest settle in your chest. The story has ended, but its echo lingers not to frighten, but to soothe, to remind you that you are safe, that you are warm, that you are free from the shadow of that world. And as you drift towards sleep, let one thought carry you. You do not have to wake up in the Middle Ages. You do not have to rise from a straw bed, eat sour bread, or walk barefoot into freezing mud. You will wake in the modern world with its light, its medicine, its comfort, and its peace. So tonight, as your eyelids grow heavy, remember the gift of now. Let the past fade into whispers. Let gratitude wrap around you like the softest blanket, and let yourself surrender to rest, safe in the knowledge that you are far from that harsh, unrelenting world. Sleep well.